Good day. I'm Emmanuel Buabeng. I'll be presenting on, and I'm presenting today on the global supply chain of cocoa. To start, we say the supply chain of cocoa is to explain how cocoa move from smallholder farmers in the producing countries like Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire to tackle consumers across Europe and Asia. I also highlight on the key actors involved in its operations and also operational challenges of the supply chain in the cocoa industry in Ghana, and also opportunities for improving addition in the producing countries like Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. Introduction, I would say cocoa is one of the most important export commodity in West Africa, and it contributes significantly to employment, rural income, and foreign exchange earning. Example, in Ghana, we have over 800,000 farms that we depend on cocoa. Over 800,000 farms household that depend on cocoa. That is the individual that depend their lives on cocoa is over 800,000, and cocoa contribute to about 20 to 30% of export earning when it comes to GDP. It also support transporters, that is the transportation businesses, the cocoa industry support, and also help depot managers and cocoa managers, purchasing clerk, and also exporters, people who export cocoa from Ghana. That is the exporters become the LBCs, the license buying company, and also those abroad that takes over the cocoa when it's being get to the port. The overview of supply chain. Here we want to say cocoa supply chain consists of several interconnected stages. And the first stage is the production stage, the harvesting stage. That is where cocoa is being harvested in the farm, and the processing. They ensure that the cocoa is being processed and also bagged and sent or be given to the LBCs. That is the aggregation stage, and also the export stage where cocoa is being sent to the port. In Ghana, we have only the Takrady and the Tema port where cocoa is being shipped to the European and the Asian market, as well as the US. We have the grinding stage, we have the manufacturing stage, and the distribution stage. So as you can see from the slides, we have the farm level, collection level. This is where the aggregation is being done, and the processing, that is where cocoa is being processed and ensure that it's being ready for export. And when the export stage reaches, that is where it's being shipped. And the manufacturing stage is where the chocolatiers also receive it and try to process and convert it into chocolate and other products. And the retail is where after the products are being done, it's being distributed for consumers to get it. The next line is cocoa production. And when we talk about the cocoa production, we say the smallholder farmers dominate the production. And major producers, that is Ghana and Nigeria, Ecuador, and Cote d'Ivoire, are in the major stage of production. And the labor intensity, cultivation, so when we we have the cocoa production stage. The production stage is where the cocoa, after drying, the beans are sold to the LBCs, and the LBCs aggregate or gather the beans and purchase them from the farmers at the various villages, transport them to the district depot, prepare them for quality inspection. This quality inspection is being done by the cocoa board. They ensure the beans are quality and grading is adhered. Then certificates are issued for exportation to take over. Alright, this slide talk about cocoa production. That is the farm level. The production stage is where the cocoa production in Ghana is dominated by smallholder farmers managing at least 1 to 5 hectares of land. For Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, they produce about 60 to 70% of global cocoa supply, making West Africa the center of global cocoa production. In Ghana, procurement activity involves license buying company working directly with farmers under the supervision of cocoa board. The next stage is harvesting and processing. At the farm level, we realize cocoa harvesting is done manually by using cutlass or harvesting knife. And after the harvesting, beans are fermented for 5 to 7 days, then dry under sunlight. This step determine flavor quality. When it's being done dry under sunlight, it gives good flavor and export grade and market price. And all this come into play. That is why they say Ghana cocoa have a premium quality. Poor fermentation reduces international acceptance and lower farm income. And when it is not being fermented well, the quality changes and at the long run, you see the international bodies will buy it at a very lower price, or they will even reject it. Example, European buyers often reject beans with high moisture content and other stuff. The next one is harvesting of cocoa, and there's a video to depict how cocoa is being harvested. Let's have a look at the video.
Hey, I'm Dan. We're here at Emmanuel Estates. I'm Dan. We're here at Emmanuel Estates, partnership between Manila Chocolate and myself, Cacao Services. We're going to talk a little bit about how to harvest. So first, we'll talk about ripeness. So you get 2 pods right up here. And on the left, you've got a pod that's perfectly ripe. So purple has turned to an orange-red. You get the kind of yellow streaks that were previously green. Here we got one just on the edge in 3 days. That'll be perfect and equivalent to this. So first, cut them off at the fruit stem called the peduncle. Nice and clean, try not to damage the bark or what's called the flower cushion. Different countries have different styles of cutting. Some do like a long, longitudinal cut. Some do transverse, prettier longitudinal, better transverse as far as risk of cutting seeds. You're going to cut in between the rows of seeds rather than a long and damage more. So typically one good blow, a machete towards the top, and a twist. Revealing all the seeds, checking the bottom, make sure there's nothing hanging out. Drop into a bucket and keep moving.
Alright, so that is how cocoa is being harvested. So it's trying to show us
ways
and means the pod is taken from the tree, and then they cut through the pod just to get the beans. Okay.
Of the weight of this pod is actual seeds and pulp. If you eyeballed it, you'd think it weighs 50%, but that's not the way it is.
Alright, so I would like us to move to the next stage. That is the local collection and aggregation. It is done by the Lancet buying cocoa companies. They purchase the cocoa from the various farmers through their purchasing clerk. They bag it and transport it to the depot and the warehouse, and after that, when it gets to the warehouse, the cocoa board system comes into play. The quality control people come to inspect if the cocoa is in good condition. Then they grade it and certify it to be shipped or export to the port for it to be shipped abroad. The next line is export and international trade. Export and international trade. That is, at this stage, cocoa beans are transported to the port. That is Takrady port or Tema port. Most African countries export raw material instead of processed cocoa product, which limits earning from global chocolate industries. Example is exporting raw beans, earn less revenue compared to exporting cocoa, butter, or chocolate. We have the processing stage where the cocoa beans is being grounded. The cocoa beans are being processed into cocoa liquor, cocoa butter, and cocoa powder. And these are what the major grinders use in producing chocolate and others. Then the major grinders include Caribou and the Cargills, as well as Olam. As we can see, these people use the processed cocoa to manufacture. They process the bean into butter, cocoa powder, and liquor, and later on use this in producing chocolate. There's a video on how this cocoa beans is
The United States is one of the world's leading producers and consumers of chocolate, yet it lacks the natural conditions needed to grow cocoa. Every year, the U.S. imports 100% of its cocoa beans from major producing countries, particularly those in West Africa, which accounts for up to 70% of global cocoa production. After a long journey across the ocean, cocoa beans arrive at processing factories where they undergo an intricate production process using advanced technology to transform into smooth, melt-in-your-mouth chocolate bars. As soon as the sacks of cocoa beans are poured into the feed hopper, the cleaning process begins, setting the stage for a remarkable transformation. The next step is roasting, a pivotal stage in the art of chocolate making, where the raw, earthy flavors of the beans are awakened and elevated into a deep, irresistible aroma. Inside industrial roasters, the beans are gradually heated to an optimal temperature of 250 to 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 to 40 minutes, unlocking their full flavor potential and laying the foundation for premium quality chocolate. This process does more than just remove excess moisture. It develops hundreds of complex flavor compounds, adding depth and character to the chocolate. If the beans are under-roasted, the flavor remains weak and unremarkable. If over-roasted, they can burn, creating an unpleasant bitterness. That's why chocolatiers carefully monitor temperature and timing to achieve the perfect roast. A fascinating transformation also takes place during roasting. The outer shells of the beans become crisp, making it easier to remove them later. Once the beans have been roasted to perfection, they are quickly cooled to lock in their aroma before moving on to the next stage of chocolate making. After roasting, the cocoa beans are sent through a cracking machine, which gently breaks their brittle shells. A high-pressure air system then blows away the lightweight husks, leaving behind only the pure cocoa nibs, the most valuable part of the bean. Packed with cocoa butter and rich flavor compounds, these nibs are the key to creating the smooth texture of chocolate. Though small and dark, these glossy cocoa nibs hold an entire world of flavor. They are the very soul of chocolate. At this stage, they are ready to enter the next crucial phase of transformation.
Alright, so that is how the cocoa is being processed, and
The cacao
this
nibs
the
are fed
processing
into a
stage
roller
shows
mill or
how
ball mill,
the
where
beans are being
intense pressure
converted
breaks down their
into
structure,
liquor,
releasing the
powder,
natural
and
cocoa
cocoa
butter,
butter.
and transforming them into
So
a
we
thick,
want to
liquid-like
move
mass known as cocoa
on to the
liquor.
next stage.
Despite
That is the manufacturing stage. At this stage, we have chocolate brand, that is Nestle, Mars, Mondelez. They are the people who convert this cocoa butter, that is the processed bean, into chocolate products. This stage, the chocolate manufacturers transform cocoa ingredient into finished products such as chocolate bar, beverages, confectionery, that is toffees and other stuff. That's it. They use the cocoa butter and other stuff to do. And the major company includes, as stated there, Nestle, Mars, and Mondelez. They produce a lot with the cocoa butter and the cocoa products. Alright, the manufacturing stage, we have a video
Hello,
that shows
everyone.
how
Welcome back to
the
Agriculture Insight.
chocolate is being,
Did you
the
know that the
chocolate
U.S.
product is
produces a
being
staggering
produced by the
4.6
Nestle,
billion
Mars, and
pounds
the
of chocolate
Mondelez.
every year?
So let's have a look
Whether
at
it's
it.
the deep, bold flavor of dark chocolate or the smooth, creamy sweetness of milk chocolate, this beloved treat has a way of making life a little sweeter. It all begins with cacao beans, carefully harvested from lush tropical farms. From there, they journey to cutting-edge chocolate factories, out where precision and expertise work in harmony to transform raw cacao into smooth, velvety chocolate that melts effortlessly on the tongue. With state-of-the-art technology and masterful craftsmanship, every bar is crafted to perfection, delivering an irresistible taste and texture in every bite. So sit back and join us as we explore the incredible journey of chocolate, from bean to bar. Let's dive in.
Alright, so that is the manufacturing process video showing how chocolate is being manufactured. The next slide is distribution and retail. For the distribution and retail, we want to mean how these products that is being manufactured get to the market or to the final consumer. Okay, and finished products are distributed globally through supermarket, wholesalers, convenience stores, and online retail platform. Efficient logistics system is being put in place to ensure that these quality products get to the consumer quickly. The next stage is the next slide is supply chain player. The cocoa supply chain involves several stakeholders. That is, we have farmers. They are the producers of the cocoa bean, and the government. That is cocoa board. That is the institution that ensures that cocoa is being gathered and aggregated and sold to the traders. That is the chocolatiers abroad. The chocolatiers abroad also do the processing, and they manufacture the product and sell to the final retailer, that is the final consumer. Each stakeholder contributes to the moving of cocoa from farms to the final markets. We have challenges in the supply chain. That is change of price, climate, and farmers becoming poor because they get a little profit from the cocoa bean because there's no value added. A lot of the profit is being made by the traders who produce the final chocolate. And despite its importance, cocoa supply chain faces a lot of challenges. That is stated there: climate change affecting yield and child labor concern, which of course the UADR talk about it. That is European Union deforestation system. They talk about it, and they don't want you to be using child to carrying heavy load from the farm. They don't want to use children to be doing farming. And also we have climate change. The weather, when the weather changes, it affects production. Sustainability issues. Traceability and ethical sourcing are becoming critical due to the international regulations such as the European deforestation. Exporter must now prove that cocoa is not grown in a deforested land, meets sustainability standard, can be traced to its origin, where the cocoa can be traced to where it was produced. For example, if a cocoa gets to the American market, there should be a trace line a trace line, and if the cocoa was produced in the western region, a certain village, there should be a document showing that the cocoa was produced in western region, in a particular village. Okay, so we have the pictures there from the farmer to LBC, cocoa board, export, and the processing, manufacturing, and to the final consumer. And also cocoa board has a system they use in tracing the cocoa, and they use digital. It's a digital platform, and they will have a line that can be traced to the source. We have value chain insights, and the farmer receive smaller share of how are we saying cocoa? How are we linking cocoa to value chain? How? Because farmer receives small share of global chocolate revenue, even though they produce the raw material. Instead of them getting the bigger share of the profit, later they realize they have a smaller quantity. Example, a chocolate bar can cost $5 in the European market or in America, but looking at the wealth of a farmer gets only $5.5 out of these profits that they make. This highlights the need for local processing. There should be an added value to the process or the bean before it's being shipped abroad. A better pricing system. The cocoa board, that is the government, should be able to ensure that the pricing of cocoa is being pegged at a rate that will favor the farmers. And also strong farmer support program. The government will introduce program that will help the farmers to produce cocoa in larger quantity. Operations management perspective. This topic relates directly to the operation management through logistic coordination, inventory control, quality management, demand forecasting, supply chain risk management. Example, transport delay between farmers, then the depot can affect export schedule and also contract fulfillment. The living, where we have example in the industry, we have the living income differential, cocoa board quality control system, and export regulation policy. That is to say, the living income differential introduced by Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire add premium to cocoa price to improve farmers' income stability. There's this agreement that any price of cocoa bar, there's an additional money they add to the price so that the farmer can get adequate or substantial amount on its produce. This policy helps reduce poverty among farmers and also promote sustainability. It ensures that the farming job or activity or operation survive day in day in, so that there can be more job for the farmers. And also it strengthens bargaining power in the global market. There are some videos to show. These are videos by Joy News and also another video.
What should this administration be looking at when it comes to cocoa prices? Looking at the data you have gotten right now, what should this administration be looking at when it comes to cocoa prices and how to manage the frustration
it's
of
talking
farmers?
about the cocoa pricing.
I think there needs to be more engagement, not just around the cocoa growing area, but across the country. Because you could have sections of the people happy with what you've done, others unhappy. So they need to understand this data and see how they can bring the whole country along with the decisions they've taken. What is important here to note is that farmers and indeed Ghanaians are the same. If they see a rational reason for doing certain action, they back it. And that is why 61% of them feel that or say that if they think that they're making the right decision, even if it's tough, they may back it.
Alright, that's from Joy News. The other one. The other one is the CEO, the current CEO having interaction with the cocoa farmers in the western region. He's speaking in the local dialect. He's saying they should not hold their cocoa because he's coming out with a price that will be very substantial and that will help them have more money in their pockets. He's saying the price is going to be big and it's going to help them make more profits as they produce more. So the next stage is recommendation. The challenges, I believe these are some of the recommendations we can put across just to help the supply chain if we have to add value to the produce before the country ship abroad. Increase processing, local processing. There should be plants owned by the local indigenes that can help add value to the product before they sell, and also support farmers financially. The government should intervene by helping them financially to financially. Some of the farmers are unable to buy fertilizers and chemicals to add up so that they can have more yields. But in this situation, if the government intervene and help them, they will be able to do and have more yields. And also invest in supply chain technology. Here we want to say some of the technologies that will help fasten the process include introduce digital traceability system, invest in rural road infrastructure so that the produce can be quickly shipped to the warehouse, and then facilitate its evacuation to port faster. And also support farmer training, encourage private sector logistic partnership. And the last one is improve transparency. Operation between the stakeholders should be clear so that it wouldn't affect any of them. For example, if expanding the domestic Ghanaian factory, it will help Ghana export high value cocoa produce instead of raw beans. Alright, finally the conclusion. Bottom we have future depend on sustainability. Cocoa supply chain is global and complex, and Africa always plays a critical role, and the future depend on sustainability. And these are some of the programs Cocoa Board needs to introduce to the farming group so that they can have a sustainable cocoa production lifestyle. So in conclusion, I would say global cocoa supply chain play a critical role in connecting farmers in the West Africa to consumers in the whole world. However, improving sustainability, strengthening logistics system, and increasing local processing capacity will allow producing countries like Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire to capture more value from the global chocolate industry.